On November 16, 1532, Atahualpa entered the plaza of Cajamarca as ruler of the largest empire in the Americas. A vast procession of attendants and nobles accompanied him. Hidden inside the buildings around the square were fewer than 200 Spaniards. By nightfall, many of Atahualpa's followers had been killed, and the emperor himself was a prisoner. It appeared that a tiny foreign expedition had defeated an empire in a single afternoon. But the fall of the Inca Empire was not simply a victory of steel, horses, and gunpowder. Before the Spanish arrived, Tawantinsuyu had already been weakened by disease, civil war, political rivalry, and resentment among some of the peoples it ruled. The Spanish did not create every fracture inside the empire. They found those fractures and forced them open. Tawantinsuyu stretched across much of the Andes, from present-day Colombia to central Chile. From its capital at Cusco, the Inca governed millions of people through roads, storehouses, labor obligations, provincial officials, military forces, and alliances with local leaders. The empire had no alphabetic writing system, but officials used knotted cords called quipus to record information and manage resources. A vast road network connected mountains, valleys, deserts, and settlements across one of the most difficult landscapes on Earth. This system allowed the Inca state to move armies and supplies with remarkable speed. It also allowed the Spanish to travel into the imperial heartland. Only a few years before Pizarro's arrival, epidemic disease had reached the Andes. The ruler Huayna Capac died during an outbreak, along with the son expected to succeed him. The exact disease remains uncertain, though smallpox is often considered a possibility. Their deaths created a dangerous succession crisis. Two powerful claimants emerged. Huáscar controlled Cusco and drew support from the southern imperial elite. Atahualpa commanded experienced armies in the north. The struggle between them became a brutal civil war. Atahualpa's forces eventually defeated Huáscar and captured him. But victory did not restore unity. Commanders had been killed. Noble families had been divided. Regional loyalties had been damaged. Supporters of Huáscar remained hostile to the new ruler. Atahualpa had won the throne, but he had inherited an empire exhausted by conflict. It was at this moment that Francisco Pizarro began moving inland. His expedition contained fewer than 200 Spaniards, including a small group of cavalry. They carried steel swords, lances, crossbows, and early firearms. These weapons gave them serious tactical advantages. Horses provided speed, height, and shock. Steel armor offered protection against many Andean weapons. Gunpowder created noise and confusion. But these advantages did not make the Spanish capable of conquering Tawantinsuyu alone. Their force was too small to occupy an empire of such size. They needed food, information, guides, porters, soldiers, and allies. Some indigenous communities had resisted Inca expansion. Others had suffered during the Civil War or opposed Atahualpa's faction. They did not all share the same motives, and they did not yet understand what permanent Spanish rule would mean. Many saw the newcomers as temporary partners in existing political struggles. The Spanish advance was therefore not the movement of one isolated European army. It was the beginning of a wider Andean conflict involving rival rulers, local communities, imperial subjects, and foreign invaders. Atahualpa received reports about the Spaniards as they traveled toward Cajamarca. He commanded forces far larger than Pizarro's expedition and had little reason to believe that such a small group could threaten him. He agreed to meet them in the town. The Spaniards prepared an ambush. They concealed cavalry and armed men inside buildings around the central plaza. When Atahualpa entered on a ceremonial litter, accompanied by attendants and nobles, the Spanish remained hidden. A religious confrontation followed. Later accounts disagree about the exact words exchanged and what happened to the Christian book presented to Atahualpa. What is clear is that the meeting suddenly became an attack. Spanish guns fired. Horses charged into the crowded square. Steel weapons cut through attendants who had not entered expecting a conventional battle. The noise, speed, and confusion shattered the procession. The Spanish seized Atahualpa alive. The capture was more important than the number of people killed. The Inca state depended heavily on the political and sacred authority of its ruler. By holding Atahualpa, Pizarro gained influence far beyond the strength of his small expedition. Even in captivity, Atahualpa retained enough authority to send orders and influence events across the empire. His imprisonment created uncertainty among commanders and regional leaders who did not know whether to act, negotiate, or wait. The Spanish had not defeated the entire Inca military. They had captured the person at the center of the imperial system. Atahualpa offered an enormous ransom for his freedom. Gold and silver were brought from temples, palaces, and storehouses across the empire. The treasure was melted down and divided among the conquerors. But the ransom did not save him. The Spanish accused Atahualpa of plotting resistance and regarded his continuing authority as a danger. His trial was controlled by his captors, and its charges cannot be treated as impartial findings. In 1533, after the trial, Atahualpa was executed. His death deepened the political crisis. The Spanish then supported alternative Inca rulers and continued toward Cusco. They did not advance alone. Indigenous allies supplied soldiers, knowledge, labor, and local support. Some hoped to weaken the Inca state. Others hoped to restore factions that Atahualpa had defeated. Their assistance transformed Pizarro's expedition into a much larger coalition. In November 1533, Spanish and Allied forces entered Cusco. The imperial capital was occupied. Temples and palaces were seized, precious metals were removed. Spanish leaders claimed authority over the political and sacred center of Tawantinsuyu. The occupation of Cusco broke the central structure of the empire. But it did not end the war. After supporting one short-lived successor, the Spanish installed Manco Inca as a ruler they believed they could control. At first, he cooperated with them. Their demands and abuse eventually made cooperation impossible. In 1536, Manco Inca escaped and organized a massive uprising. His forces surrounded Cusco and placed the Spanish garrison in extreme danger. For months, the survival of Spanish rule remained uncertain. The rebellion failed to retake the city. Indigenous allies again played an important role in helping the Spanish hold their position. Manco Inca withdrew into the remote region of Vilcabamba, where an independent Inca state survived. Resistance continued there for decades. The conquest, therefore, did not end at Cajamarca in 1532. It did not end with Atahualpa's execution in 1533. It did not even end with the occupation of Cusco. Independent Inca rule survived until 1572, when Spanish forces captured Vilcabamba. The final ruler, Tupac Amaru, was taken to Cusco and executed. Only then did the last sovereign Inca state disappear. Spanish colonial rule transformed the Andes. Existing systems of labor and tribute were redirected toward colonial demands. Land and wealth moved into Spanish hands. Christian institutions replaced or absorbed many Inca sacred spaces. Disease, warfare, forced labor, famine, and displacement produced catastrophic population decline. Yet conquest did not erase Andean civilization. Quechua and Aymara languages survived. Communities preserved agricultural knowledge, weaving traditions, religious practices, local identities, and relationships with the landscape. Elements of Inca roads, terraces, and political memory remained part of life across the Andes. The Inca Empire did not fall because a few Spaniards were simply stronger than millions of indigenous people. It fell because several forces converged at once. Disease disrupted the ruling dynasty. Civil war divided the empire. Political resentment created allies for the invaders. Spanish weapons and horses provided tactical advantages. The capture of Atahualpa paralyzed central authority. Existing roads and institutions were turned against the state that had built them. Chance, calculation, betrayal, and local ambition shaped every stage of the conquest. The Spanish destroyed Tawantinsuyu as an independent empire. They did not destroy the people who had created it. Fault lines of history. Like and subscribe if you would like to hear more documentaries about the turning points that changed civilization.